Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Zal, and over the past few weeks, there have been a lot of data mining and information coming out regarding the next major update for the War Within expansion, Season 2 of the Undermine patch, with the patch 11.1 bringing in so many new features from brand new class adjustments, massive big reworks, a brand new zone, more movement systems, and big adjustments to end-game content of that season, including delves, raids, dungeons, and PvP. And when it comes to Mythic Plus in particular, there have been a lot of data mining as of recently, with them doing major reworks as to how some of these dungeons will function, but also updating and upgrading the rewards and the gearing opportunities within this Season 2 content, which will hopefully give players a little bit more reason as to why they'd want to jump back into Mythic Plus for the Season 2 of the War Within. With many players especially being very intimidated by some of the dungeons and the whole dungeon list of Season 2, with them looking to try to soften it as best as possible. But hopefully we'll be able to test some of those changes specifically when it comes to the PTR realms, hopefully with 11.1 making PTR very soon. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for the War Within expansion, especially like patch 11.1, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. Now, there's a number of things that we could talk about when it comes to Season 2, but I first want to start out with some of the rewards, which are going through a bit of a revamp. With every single expansion so far during this season, you have basically the same amount rewards for that expansion. During Shadowlands, we had the Deathwalker, which had a variety of them. They did give them just a few new colors depending on the season, but all of them were pretty samey. Dragonflight wasn't all that different, with us getting a different type of Armoredon. They were a little bit different, like, you know, the green Dragonflight version, which is more leafy, the blue one, which is more time-wimey, the fiery one, the frost one. But with the Diamond Mexit, a lot of players expected for us just to get 4 or 3 types of, however many seasons we're going to have, different types of Mexius for us to earn during Mythic Plus in this expansion. However, Season 2 War Within is switching it up a little bit, and it's going to be more thematic by the looks of things. The Diamond Suit was available because it was a first season that had to do with the Dornagal doors, but this time around, with us going into the Undermine, this one is more Goblin themed. It's kind of like a mechanical spider type of a mount we've had in the past, but it being thematic to the Goblin type of patch with the Goblin type of season, I think is a very nice touch, and gives players even more of a reason to dive into a brand new season, since there's a whole new mount for you to collect, not just the recolor of the first season's mount. As for the actual big rewards that a lot of people do for Mythic Plus, which is gear, the gearing is going to stay about roughly the same, where you get champion track gear starting at a +2 and up, Mythic Plus keystones, hero track gear from +7, so nothing necessarily new there, and you still get Gilded Crest from 8 and above, with +10s awarding you weekly Mythic track items for you to collect from your Great Vault, which is all good, and it's pretty standard from season to season. However, this time around though, we are going to be getting a bit of a leg up when it comes to tier sets, with the War Within expansion awarding a Season Spelunker Supreme achievement for every season, which is like the seasonal mastery achievement, where you either get 1600 in PvP, AOTC for a new raid tier, so this will be, instead of the Queen Anne Zurich, it'll be for Season 2 set up for the Undermine raid, or getting KSM for that season. Normally we get an item that converts into a token, that converts into a tier set, but they're kind of simplifying this a little bit by giving us an extra charge on our catalyst, which means technically during the very first week of the new expansion, you could be using 2 charges of catalyst immediately on a brand new character. Not saying that getting KSM or AOTC is going to be really easy week 1, but bringing in all the gear from Season 1 into Season 2 usually makes the start of that season a little bit easier, as players do some early pushes during the very first weeks of that content update. But it does mean that PvPers and M pluses in particular should at least get an extra charge of the catalyst a little bit sooner than usual, and especially if you have a couple of pieces of hero track gear that you can get from M plus, that could potentially be some hero track tier set pieces for you to utilize pretty early on, which is very exciting. Outside of this, there's also going to be the return of the Dinar's currency for Season 2 raid tier, which is mostly there to help raiders catch up, but Mythic Plusers can also utilize it, as you'll essentially be able to buy a single piece of raid gear guaranteed with a brand new season's vendor. Very similar to the final seasons of expansions like Dragonflight and Shadowlands, the Dinar's vendor was essentially, or I guess the currency wasn't always called the Dinars, but that Dinar's type of vendor allowed you to purchase guaranteed raid pieces from the current raid tier, and those items could be upgraded all the way to Mythic 6 out of 6 quality. And the token is going to be obtained through a new renown track that will be available during Season 2 raid tier, which I guess will advance every few weeks or every week. In fact, we'll get a little more information how all that functions in terms of details once 11.1 PTR is active. But this new renown track is essentially how we'll be able to catch up for the raid season. And eventually with that new renown track from the raid, you'll also be able to get a token to purchase a guaranteed piece of raid gear, which for Mythic Plusers could be massive. No longer should you run into a situation where, let's say, you needed a certain trinket for your class to even operate, like this Spymaster's Web, and no matter how many times you do that raid on normal or heroic, you would just get zero luck getting that one desired coveted item. So now you'll be able to purchase those mandatory must-have items from the raid, and you'll be able to get up to 2 potentially of these items based on early data mining. You should be able to get 2 tokens to buy 2 pieces of gear over a period of time. So potentially up to 2 of your best in slot pieces can be bought from the newest raid in Season 2 as a guarantee for your end of season pushes within Mythic Plus content, which is not only going to be great for your main to make sure that you get best in the best gear and best in slots available, but also is a fantastic bit of catch up for all of your alts as well. Another thing to look forward in Season 2 is the fact that class compositions are probably going to change by quite a bit. So far, augmentation evokers have been a very popular pick ever since they got introduced during the 2nd season of Dragonflight, and they've been a top competitive choice since then. And they continue to be a top competitive choice right now in War Within Season 1, but in Season 2 they've been adjusted to no longer buff tanks or healers, which is going to change their dynamic and their viability likely in Mythic Plus as well. This is interesting because it now opens up an opportunity potentially for other classes to shine, since augmentation no longer makes tanks tankier and healers more healy. It is still very possible that Aug will remain a very popular choice going forward and may even still maintain the crown and the throne for Season 2, but at the very least for many other players, this does open up an opportunity for other classes to shine and potentially to mix up the meta by quite a bit, which is always a very exciting. Also in Season 2, Keystones at some point will stop to deplete with a new account-wide achievement, War Within Keystone Legend for Season 2, a brand new achievement with a new reward. To be able to obtain this achievement, you need to attain M+ rating of 2850, which right now seems to be potentially not a set in stone number, but rather something that is placed for now, but this number and this rating score may change based on community feedback. The reward for the achievement is, whenever you fail to clear a Mythic Plus dungeon on time, you will no longer reduce that keystone below +12 for the rest of the season. So basically, keystones no longer decay. This decay no longer works whenever you fail to time a key, but also when it comes to your Great Vault, you no longer have it downgraded if you fail to time a key either. You'll still be able to manually lower your keystones if you need to for some reason, but you will no longer have your keystones for your main or your alts decay at all. This would be fantastic for gearing alts because ideally you want to get a keystone timed because you get more crests that way. Not timing a key is not nearly as punishing because you don't lose out on as many crests, but having to re-up that key back up, let's say you had an 8 that you were spamming for Gilded Crest, having it lowered down back to 7 was very unfortunate because then you have to raise it all the way back up if someone went wrong with one of your dungeons. So not having to worry about it for your alts is going to be fantastic. Hopefully they'll adjust and rework the Mythic Plus rating required for this requirement in order to make it potentially more available for more players, because in fact a lot of players in the community don't enjoy the fact that the keystones get lowered whenever you can't time a dungeon. They feel like it's a little too punishing, and hopefully they can potentially open up this feature for a lot more players, not just the top 2 competitors of the Mythic Plus season. As for additional changes for Season 2 of Mythic Plus, we know that we're going to be getting a whole new Mythic Plus dungeon roster, with dungeons such as Dark Flame Cleft, The Rookery, Cinderbri Meadery, and a fan favorite of Priory of the Sacred Flame being available for that new season. But also a brand new dungeon called Operation Floodgate will be joining that season. This is a brand new instance that will be added as of the patch 11.1. So it's going to be exciting to see some of the different mechanics and some of the different rewards that will be offered with that instance. And it's actually, I think, the first time we've seen 5 of expansion-specific dungeons being added as part of the season, instead of 4 expansion and 4 out. However, we still will be getting out of expansion dungeons as well, with the Motherlode being part of the list, as well as a second half of Operation Mechagon workshop specifically, as well as the Shadowlands dungeon Theater of Pain, which I feel like doesn't fit the Goblin aesthetic and the Goblin themes of Season 2 at all. However, many of those older dungeons from Workshop, Motherlode, and Theater of Pain are going through a number of changes, and there've been a lot of data mining as of recently, and I cannot wait to test out these instances on the PTR as soon as we have them available. But basically, they're trying to reduce many of the different tank busters in that dungeon, as many of the tank specific mechanics are being nerfed by quite a bit. Many of the deadliest casts in those instances, as well as some of the most annoying spells, have also been nerfed as well. Primarily their damage, the cast time of those spells, which being a little bit longer so it's easier to interrupt. Some of those spells no longer stun players or apply any other variety of effects, just damage, which is super nice. Maybe they don't even crowd control players anymore. There have been some adjustments there, or potentially abilities that do AoE damage will only hit 3 players instead of 5. And some abilities don't even do damage, but instead will just slow targets down. Like the first boss of Mechagon Workshop in particular does have a frontal damage, but the AoE raid-wide group wide damage no longer exists, just applies at 20% slow, at least right now, based on early data mining. So there's a lot of reworks being done specifically. However, there's also been a major changes as well. Like the first boss is kind of like a council fight for Theater of Pain. They've now linked all these bosses, because previously you would try to nuke down one of the casters as soon as possible. Usually Sethel, their curse, and they would have the Parcerin and Dessa. This was a very front-loaded dungeon, but they're trying to adjust them where they're not as front-loaded. But if you kill one of these council members before others, it actually buffs all the other bosses. Very similar to the Dungeon of Stonevault, where one of these bosses dies, it actually amplifies the others, so you kind of want to be a little bit more even with you killing them, both of them. So they're doing the same thing with the Theater of Pain, where you kind of want to even out these bosses, but a lot of the mechanics are no longer as impactful as they were, so you're not trying to DPS race them down as quickly as possible. It's in the same adjustment over in the Tussle Tongs fight, where there's 2 bosses for you to interact with No Mercy receiving a variety of nerfs, especially in the AoE damage, but now you kind of want to even out both of these bosses as best as you can, because if one of them dies, the other one goes into a bit of an overdrive. So there's a lot of adjustments being made right now, but I'm sure there's going to be even more changes based on player feedback, because right now those seasonal dungeons do seem to be a little bit too rough. First impression by many players have been that these are probably going to be very challenging for the new season. So hopefully a lot of those will be adjusted so it's a bit more manageable and a lot more puggable, and where the teamwork coordination, especially for some of the lower dungeons and weekly keys, is not nearly as high as many players expect them to be as of this moment. But as of right now, this is everything that we have so far regarding Season 2 content in the patch 11.1, available for testing on PTR, hopefully very soon. As always, though, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I do hope you guys did enjoy this update. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community where we'll be posting all of the new stuff once 11.1 PTR gets even more additional data mining, or finally hits the PTR realms for us to test all of the new stuff arriving in this update. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.